Hey everyone, it's Kabir here. So in this session, we are going to see practically how to create the component. In the component, how can we create our own UI? So let's begin with it. So before starting the session, don't forget to like, subscribe and share the videos. Okay, chalo, let's begin. So first of all, in I think last session, we have created an React application, right? So this is how the React application looks like. Let's execute this application and see how the output going to display. So just go to your terminal, new terminal, and here you are not in your project path. So we have to go like add app one. Then we are in our project path. Now I want to execute the React application. To execute a React application, I have a command, and that command is nothing but npm start. Enter. Now let's see the output in your browser, how it looks like. Something it's something like this. This is the logo of React. Now let us try to change this UI. Okay, then just go to VS Code. Okay, now first of all you have to go to the app.js. Fine. Now we are getting this UI because of app component, and that component is nothing but app component, and the code whatever they wrote, this particular UI is nothing but this UI. Now let's change this UI. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this header. From header to header. Fine, we have removed. Now let's write something like h2 tag, and I will be saying like welcome to my channel. Cool. So just save it and just go to your browser now. Yes, we have changed the UI. So this is what the component is. Components is going to take some input known as props, and that props, and it is going to return you some kind of UI. Now let us create our own component. So let's see how our component look like. So to create our own component, just go to src and just create one folder known as components. Just to structure properly, I'm creating a folder known as components. So whatever components I'm going to create, I'm going to create inside this folder, as simple as it is. So just I'm here component, just create one file and tell it's a first component .js. Now this is your JS file, right? Now you wanted to make a component. Whenever you want to make something as a component, first statement you have to import your React library. So for that, import React. It's like a reference, and from you have to give the React library. This React library is coming from your node modules. Cool. Done. Now remember, whenever we are giving some reference, right, that reference first letter should be capital. That's the rule you have to follow. Okay, now what I told, what is a function, what is a component? Component is a function. So component is a function. So first component, so it is a function. Done. The next, what was the next statement? It is going to take some input known as a props in React world. Okay, how can we give an input to a function? In a parameters, props, I'm taking name as a props because we are going to call this input as a props in React world. Now this function is going to return, so return, it is going to return some UI. So what UI? Okay, let's write something. Div, I'm going to take one h2. Cool, it's the first component. That's very cool. And I want to take some p, and I want to say something like I have created my first component. Cool. And if you want to give some colors, you can give. So we will be seeing some other part. As of now, we have to just understand how to create a component, and we have to know how we can like display this particular UI in the browser. We are going to focus only on that 2 points in this session. So this is what we have created the component. Now I want to display this component in the browser. So to display, I have to first export this. Yes, I have to give. So if I wanted to give, I have to write one statement like export default your first component. So by this statement, you are telling that yes, I am ready to give this component. Whoever wants this component, just import it in your file and use it. Okay. Now I'm telling in browser, see what is the React? React is a single page application. It means it will load only one page, and that page is your index.html, right? Now in this index.html, I want to display this component UI, this particular UI. So how can I do? So for that purpose, what we have did is that we have index.js, right? In this we wrote some code. In that code we are telling load the app component, means in index.html it is going to load your app component, right? So how we have to load, how we have to give instruction, we will be seeing in the next session. So what is this react.render, everything. As of now, overall knowledge is something in your browser, one page is going to execute like load, that is nothing but your index.html. Now whatever you are going to create, that everything have to append in this particular div. Okay, so according to our code in app.js, not sorry, in index.js, we are telling append app component inside your div. So how we have to say, how we have to follow, we will be seeing in next video. Okay, just remember this particular concept. Just save it. Cool. Now, so in browser app component is going to come, but we have created our component. I don't want to display the UI of app component. I wanted to display the UI of my component, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come in here, your app component. Just I'm going to remove this designing. Okay, right? Now I wanted to display here my component. So to display here first my component, I have to import my component. So how we can import? I'm going to give one reference to represent my component. Like I am saying my first component, you can give any name, not a big issue. Okay, but you have to remember only one rule, that whenever you are going to give some reference, your first letter of that name should be capital. So here F is capital, right? Cool. Then from, and you have to give the path of your file. Now I'm in app.js, and now my file is in component folder. So I will go in the root. Okay, now I came to the root. From here components, from here first yeah. Now I gave the path of my component. Now I wanted to use my component. Now what I told, component is nothing but a function. It is going to return you some UI, and that UI is called an element. So how can you represent the element in the tag? And so we have to write here one tag. Like this is the way how we can write the tag. Okay, in this we have to write our component name, first comp, and we have to give self-closing. So this particular representation is called element representation or component representation. It's similar to your HTML, that's why we call it XML. Now this particular component is called user defined component or custom components. Okay, now just save your file. Okay, now just go to your browser. I hope we can see the result. Yes, we are able to see my first component. I have created my first component. So this is how you are displaying your own UI in the browser using the component. So we have learned practically how to create a component, what is JSX. Okay, so now in this particular file, if I ask you what is a component, this is a particular component, nothing but a function which is going to take some input. That input is nothing but your props, and this particular return, right? This particular thing is called UI. Now, if I say you, I want to do some changes. I have created my first component. Instead of this, I want to say like my name is, my name is, okay. Now here I'm going to use our JavaScript expression. Okay, now here I wanted to give something like props, because I'm going to get dynamic data. How we are going to get? So where we are going to where we are displaying this component in app.js. So now what I'm saying, to this component pass some input. So how can we pass any input to a component? Using an attribute, and every attribute is going to be in the format of key value. So this is a element, this is a component. So if I want to pass some data to this, I have to give that data as an attribute. But this is a custom component, so I can write my own attribute, I can decide my own key, I can decide my own value. So I am deciding key as a name. Okay, now how can we differentiate an attribute? Name equals to, right, equals to. Now here I am going to give some name like Kabir. Okay, now my first component is going to take some input, and that input key is name and value is Kabir. So this particular input is going to come to this first component as a props. So that name value is present in this object. Internally, how it is going to be formed? It is going to be something like this. It is going to props as an object. It is going to create one object. It would be name, and it would be like value will be Kabir. This is how internally it look like. If I want to access some property inside object, how can I access? Object name dot property name key, right? So if I wanted to access this, how can I do? Props dot, what is the key? It's a name. That's cool. Okay, now we can represent. Now let us see how is it. We have to save everything what we have did the changes. Just go to your browser. See, my name is Kabir. Now I want to display my more two friends name. So let's try how can we display. So what I told, component is a piece and we can be reuse it. So now I don't wanted to write one more component to display some my friend name as a Santosh. So I want to use the same component, but I want to change some data. So how can I do? So simple. Again, I will write the same thing. First component. Now your name will be like Santosh. That's it. I have to write this much only. Now in our team we have two Santosh, so I am going to indicate that both of the name with only one component. Just save it. Cool. Now let's see the browser. Yes, I'm able to see my first component. My name is Kabir. My first component, my name is Santosh. That's what the benefit of your component. You can create only once, and whenever, wherever you want, you can reuse it. So component is a JavaScript function which is going to take some input as a props. So we took some input is nothing but name, and it is going to return some UI. So what it returned? It returned this particular UI, and we can reuse it. So we have wrote the component only one time, but we have reused it multiple times. Now you can write one more time, like one more element you can give. How many you want, you can give that much. That is the benefit of getting, that's what benefit you get when you go for component based architecture. So that's all for this session, and thank you everyone.